I'm trying to think of the
I
word.
think it's pocket. Anyway,
It is kind
so
of, yeah, so
I hang them from the tree. I plug them into the outlet in the wall, and I had like a really big extension cord. So and I hung them in the tree in a yard in the backyard, and I lit them so they are light bulbs and they're lit, but they look like fruit, like because they're pear shaped. Um, so this kind of thing. And there was like a subject, a model, holding a basket, again, full of those light bulbs, kind of like she's picking up the fruit from the tree, but they're light bulbs. And I shot it at night when it was dark outside. And that's what I mean when I play with like association and metaphors. So that requires not just preparation in terms of like props and setup, but also like a thought process. Oh, what I'm going to do with this object and what it's going to represent or what it's going to symbolize. So I do research online, and sometimes I create mood boards, and sometimes I draw sketches. Um, I'm not a painter in any way, but I can doodle a little, so I can like draw quick sketches, and that really helps me, first of all, to visualize my own idea. It helps me to understand how it's going to look like in the end. Plus, it's very helpful when you work with a team, like let's say a model or a makeup artist, whoever. It really helps also to show them and tell them what you mean. Because like you said, it's really hard to describe when I tell people, "Oh, I do conceptual, surrealistic, whimsical female portraiture," and they're like, and I'm like, it's easier to show sometimes what I mean by that. But it's yeah. So that comes first, like visualization part, and then of course, if it requires an installation or set design or prop or some kind of specific styling, then there starts like a production part, right? Where I would like either buy or source props or make them myself or maybe commission some other artist to make it for me or rent things. It really depends on the idea. And then I see like location wise where it has to be. Can I shoot it in New York in the park, or do I need to travel? Or sometimes it goes vice versa. If I travel, that can influence me and inspire to create something where I travel. And then of course shooting usually um maybe 70% is me going there and setting up things, and then I photograph for maybe 30 minutes and then I'm done. I'm done, and because I already pre-planned everything, I know exactly what I'm going to use. If I'm using props, I know exactly how much work that are going to require in the end in post-production. Do I need to like perfect them in post, smooth them out, give them better shape, or maybe like completely replace them with like a stock photo, or things like that. And I'm going to exactly know what I'm going to add later in post, like what I'm going to composite from other images on the final image. And editing, people often ask me like how much time does the editing part takes. Again, it really depends, but because I'm using props and set design, it really speeds up my work because I already know, like I actually have a class right now. There's Photoshop Summit uh, going on online. It's like an online conference, and I teach a tutorial about the importance and power of props and set design in composite photography. So I always use at least something um, as a prop to create that kind of like natural interaction with my subject and light and perspective and everything. So that's why my editing usually takes, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours maybe, which is not a lot because I mean, compared to other artists that I've heard people saying, oh, I spent like, I don't know, 20 hours on this image. And I'm like, what are you doing for 20 hours there? Are you completely like repainting the whole thing? Are you like, you know, because I've seen people who are much further into digital art than I am. Sure, they start with photography, but then they like take a Wacom tablet and they completely repaint everything by hand. And that, of course, I can imagine takes hours. But for me, it's all like quick compositing. I don't really do complicated masks because it's all shot on set and I know exactly what goes where. Um, and usually I'm done with compositing in like 2 hours, and then other 3 hours I spend on like tweaks and little tiny adjustments that nobody ever going to notice but me. So yeah.
What you're saying is exactly what I've been preaching for absolutely ever. It's in order to create a sense of realism in something that's basically a composition of a number of different elements. It just look because the thing is actually there, although albeit maybe not at the same time, but it is at least in the same space, and that is so much easier to composite that in. I did a thing over the pandemic. I created an image where I'm slicing a lemon in midair, and so the knife goes through the lemon splits. There's lots of stuff flying out of the lemon, juice and whatever else. Um, and I often get asked, like, how did you do that? And the answer is, oh, how long did it take? Is exactly the question I get. And the answer is, well, not very long, because actually the concept was there. I drew out a sketch just like you said.
Mhm, mhm,
I had the absolute idea. I photographed the two halves of the lemon in the
mhm.
space where they ended up in the picture. They were on skewers, on spikes,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
yeah,
knew
exactly.
where they were going to
Mhm.
be exactly. And so the lighting
And
was
you took 5 minutes just removing the skewer, and that's it.
exactly absolutely no problem at all. Didn't take very long at all. And the lighting on it was accurate because they were actually where they were meant to be.
Yeah,
And the juicy bits and the bits of fruit, whatever you call it, fruit flesh stuff, that was
juice.
flying in the air. That was just actually my daughter throwing up that stuff into the air several times. We photographed it. I figured out, okay, well, I figured out it looks better when it's, when you throw something up, it flies up, then it sort of stalls on the top, and then it comes back down again. And so I just realized that getting the timing
Or shoot
right.
at sideways.
Yes, so it's basically, in order for it to look realistic, I realized that it had to be flying in the direction that it would be flying in had I actually sliced the lemon. And so it just took a
Mm,
little bit of time to get the timing right and to just,
mhm.
practice a little bit. Um, but then once we figured out that little hack, it was actually really quite easy to get some elements that were then really easy to composite back in afterwards because they were in the right space. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, then press here for the full episode in glorious Technicolor. Hey, and don't forget to subscribe.